Before you begin this episode of I'll Tell You What, know that it will contain sensitive and triggering matters. I would not continue to listen or watch if you are around children or if these topics may bother you. When you think of blaxploitation films, you have to think of her. Her on-screen performances in films such as Coffy and Foxy Brown made her the original baddie. Now, she would evolve into a well-rounded actress, working with the likes of Spike Lee, Quintin Tarantino, Paul Newman, and even the Weinstein brothers before she was the woman we all know and love. She was Pammy, a girl from Denver that loved the outdoors. So yes, this episode is dedicated to the love stories of the one and only Pam Grier. Recently, a friend from college asked if I'll Tell You What would ever reflect on someone or people that did not marry. The short answer is yes. We're about to do so right now. Though Pam never walked down the aisle, she came close many times, and even to a few people you know. Her love stories are meaningful too, and we will get into all of that soon enough. Welcome back, Aisle Runners. If you're new in the pews, I'll Tell You What is a podcast that shares the weddings, marriages, and romances of Black figures throughout time. We bask on these relationships not to be messy, but to remind you of the passion in our past and to humanize the people we put on pedestals. Basically, it's all love. Black history, and I'm Ashley, your favorite raconteuse that tells you these stories every single Monday. Welcome to the 14th episode of I'll Tell You What. So let's talk about Pam Grier's first relationship once she got to LA. After she left Denver to move to Los Angeles to pursue a career in film, she went out to a club with a few friends. Now, this was not the Foxy Brown that y'all remember. This Pam Grier was a very plain woman. The type of woman that didn't wear makeup because she just simply didn't know how to. And you could tell that she wanted to date and was aware that she was attractive to men, but she still had a lot of insecurities and fears based off her previous experiences. We'll get into that later. So, her friends were like, let's go to the club, girl. Let's just have a time. So she was like, I don't have anything to wear because she only had this one work outfit, which was basically a white blouse, a black skirt, and kitten heels. So she goes to the club looking like a secretary. And this man that's over 7 feet tall comes and approaches her. He asks her if they could dance and she says yes. He introduces himself as Lou. He's a college student at UCLA, and sometime after they first met, they began to date. So she found that she had a lot of things in common with him, in addition to things that really mattered to her. And though they really seemed to be clicking, they didn't want anything serious. She was in LA to go to college so she could pursue a career in filmmaking. And he was about to leave LA soon anyway to head to Milwaukee for work. But they fell for each other anyway. So during the summer, he told her to actually stop calling him Lou. Though he was named after his father, he was actually going to change his name because he was converting to Islam. So he would no longer be Lou Alcindor. He would go by his new name, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Because his feelings had evolved and he was growing in his faith, he wanted to marry her. Now he was fine dating a non-Muslim, but he wasn't fine with marrying one. And he told her, quote, if we get married, you don't have to get an education. I'll take care of you. So I guess that was kind of his way of proposing. I guess, girl. But anyway, she wanted to give the relationship a chance, and just to hear him out, she told him she would research what it took to become a Muslim woman. What did that really mean, right? But what she discovered within her studies was disappointing. She said, quote, the Quran is oppressive to women. And she told Kareem that. He tried convincing her that the new Islam is way more progressive, and she didn't believe it, nor him. Now, around this time, she was cast in 2 films that would take her to the Philippines for 3 months. And when she returned to California, she could tell that things had changed. For instance, he wouldn't let her socialize with his friends when they came over. Like, that was something she was used to and actually looked forward to. She awkwardly just stood in his bedroom until he summoned her. He said, "Make daddy a sandwich." Okay, well, he didn't say that, but he did ask her to basically make them a sandwich and then, okay, disappear. And that embarrassed her. Like, what? And then when Kareem moved to Milwaukee to play for the Bucks, they began a long-distance relationship, and Pam continued to ask questions about the boundaries of their relationship and potential marriage if she were to convert to Islam. This became a regular point of contention in their relationship. She even asked Kareem's Catholic mom, what would she do? You know, they really had a good relationship, and essentially his mom was like, "I just want you to marry my son." And Pam wasn't sure that converting would give her the freedom she enjoyed, but also wouldn't constrict her and her marriage. Like, she read that Islamic women would have to stand or walk behind their husband. She didn't really like that. And she asked him, like, what would you do if you became more conservative or if you just wanted to marry someone else? And he would never give her a good definitive answer. And that caused her to be a little bit concerned. So months later, on her birthday, he calls her up. She's thinking he's calling her just to wish her a happy birthday, which he does. And then he asks her, "Are you ready to convert to Islam so we can get married?" And she's like, I still need more time to sit with this. And he's like, quote, "If you don't commit to me today, I'm getting married at 2 o'clock this afternoon." She's a converted Muslim and she's been prepared for me. I'm sorry. Come again now. So now Pam is wondering if he's been cheating on her this whole time, and he told her that he had a feeling that she might not convert, so he essentially had like a wife in the chambers just in case. Now the reality was he actually reconnected with this woman when he was in Milwaukee that he knew from back in California, and because she wanted to be with him so badly, she converted, according to his autobiography. So to try to make it seem like this wasn't something he really wanted to do, Kareem told Pam that, if you want to get married, I'll cancel this wedding today. And also, sorry to put you on the spot like this on your birthday. Knowing that this relationship had finally hit the end of the road through so many tears, she wished him the best. Then he said thank you. And hey, can you also return to me that book on being a Muslim woman? But honestly, there were layers to why Pam didn't want to marry Kareem. So the reason why Pam Grier didn't want to convert to Islam and marry Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was way more than just wanting to go to college. It was rooted in her childhood experience of what she witnessed and even endured while growing up as a military child. Now, Pam is the daughter of Clarence, a member of the Air Force, and Gwendolyn, a nurse. Her father was rarely around, mostly due to work, which meant her mom raised Pam and her 2 siblings alone. But her mom didn't complain. Actually, Pam said that when her dad would send home as little as $5 a month, her mom wouldn't say anything. Instead, she went back to school to become a nurse so she could make more money for the family. She was preparing for a time when her husband would retire or if he got hurt so that the family would never go without. Now, working these hours at the local hospital is how Pam's mom was able to get them this really, really nice house. It was so nice that when Pam's dad came home, he thought he actually was at the wrong place. People would compliment her dad on getting them such a beautiful home, which caused him internal discord because he knew he had nothing or very little to do with this. Once Pam's dad retired, he didn't know what to do with himself. Being idle wasn't it, and he felt some kind of way because his wife was making more money than he was. Now, he didn't think he could find another good comparable job, and this would cause her parents to fight and eventually get divorced. Now, her mom struggled to keep up with the mortgage and the bills, so as Pam, her siblings, and her cousins that eventually moved in with them as well were old enough to get jobs, they would begin to contribute to the household as well. So while Pam's mom sought her independence through going to school and getting that nursing job, she also saw the other end of the spectrum, which was her grandmother. Her grandma Markey wanted to be a kept lady. She didn't work, wouldn't drive herself, and overall acted very helpless. A fight occurred between her grandparents when she was younger, and this basically ended their marriage. But because they were Catholic, they didn't divorce. But however, Pam's grandmother was so beholden to her husband since she purposely didn't want to do anything for herself. So Pam said that her mom, quote, drummed it in me that getting a diploma was the most important insurance policy I could ever have because it led to independence and possibility. And her grandfather even instilled a similar sentiment in her as well. So she was determined to not have to rely on a spouse or a partner to get the life she wanted. Another reason behind that is also rooted in several experiences that occurred within her childhood. For a very long time, she purposely tried downplaying her looks and not to be seen as attractive. She thought that pretty girls were, quote, targets. Pam was known as the cute kid. She was adorable, precocious, all the things, right? But when she was 6 years old, she was aprayed by 2 neighborhood preteen boys. That same year, a classmate molested her after school. And years later, when she was in community college, a family friend that was also a professional athlete aprayed her at a party and then tried assaulting and threatening her on the way home. She never told anyone of any of these assaults until many years later when she wrote her autobiography. So this childhood is why Pam couldn't sheepishly convert to a religion she didn't agree with. And soon you'll see is also why she made certain decisions in her other romantic relationships as well. Over a year and some change after her pseudo-engagement to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ended, Pam Grier met a Latino comedian while doing a press run in Chicago for the movie Coffy. That comedian was Freddy Prince. Now, she was instantly attracted to him and the feeling was mutual. He told her that he was familiar with her work as he had seen 2 of her movies. When they were back in Los Angeles, Pam went to one of his comedy shows and got her entire life, and this would mark the start of their relationship. Not only would they become lovers, they became friends. Now, Pam saw herself as his mentor somewhat because she was a few years older than him. And while they were both on the rise in their respective careers, he needed advice on how to kind of navigate certain parts of the industry. So he looked to her for that. But as their relationship continued, she began to have doubts. Now, Freddie enjoyed partaking in the D of LS and the cane of Co. Pam, someone who definitely didn't partake in drugs, said that when he did that, he changed. He was no longer lovable and funny, but, quote, rude and unrestrained. Another thing he would do that would annoy her is he'd intentionally want to make love without protection. Now, Pam's career was on the rise. She wasn't trying to have anyone's babies, especially not at that moment. And as someone who had been through multiple aprays and assaults, she wanted and needed to be in control of what was to happen to her body. But Freddie didn't understand why Pam didn't want his baby, something he'd ask her a lot. He said once, quote, I'm trying to get you pregnant. I love you and I'm afraid that you may not marry me. If you have my baby, I'll have a connection to you that'll never go away. Those words did absolutely nothing to her. But she did see a lot of potential in Freddie, but realistically, when she thought about their life together, because at one point she even pondered a future where marriage was in the cards for them, she realized that between the drug use and their ambitions for their careers would ultimately make some very hard decisions in the future if children were indeed involved. This is probably why she fell in love with him, but actually never told him. So as hard as it was, she decided to do what was ultimately best for her and break up with Freddie. He didn't want their relationship to end and fought it. Pam said, quote, "I love you too much to continue to watch this." And by this, meaning his life deteriorate due to his depression and drug use, and also the people around him that encouraged this. Now, though Freddy didn't want to be just friends, they would be. And Pam would continue to be a sounding board for him in the years to come, even if he didn't always heed or take her advice. She said he even called her within a year of them breaking up when he was considering marrying Catherine Cochran, the mother of their son, Freddy Prince Jr. But through their friendship, Freddy would actually open the door to her next love, another comedian. A good minute after Pam Grier's relationship to comedian Freddy Prince ended, he would actually introduce her to her next love. One day, Freddy picked Pam up because someone he knew didn't believe he actually knew her. He drove them up to this mansion, which belonged to the one and only Richard Pryor. Allegedly, because Freddy and Richard were about to partake in things that Pam didn't want to get into, if you know what I mean, she asked Freddy to take her home. Years later, Pam and Richard would reconnect in 1976 when they were both working on the movie Grease Lightning, but they actually wouldn't start dating until months after filming ended. In this relationship, however, Pam mothered Richard. She tried getting him on a consistent routine that consisted of exercise, eating good food, and waking up before the afternoon. Eventually, he asked her to move in with him. She declined, however, because she said that she wanted to get to know the real him. She felt like she had only seen glimpses between his attempts at sobriety and the guy that stayed high. However, she would stay over from time to time. With Pam, Richard was sober for about 6 months. Then she said he started to fall back into old habits. He started hanging out with his old friends that liked elevation, and Pam would discover lines in his house, and he would deny that he was using again, though she said it was very obvious that he was. Now, a true tale occurred when Pam went to the gynecologist for her annual exam. Her gyne told her that she has a, quote, buildup of cocaine residue around the cervix and in her, So, as someone who doesn't do drugs, all of this surprised her. Friends, I'm about to describe something that I did not know prior to reading Pam's autobiography. Now, you might know this, you might not. No judgment either way, by all means. I just personally didn't know. Her doctor basically told her that if you're engaging in relations with someone that is doing the cane of co, this can cause infertility and possibly other uterine problems that may lead to the need of a hysterectomy. And if you were engaging in any mouth business, you may realize a numbness. Now, cane of co-usage can also cause aggression and, how can I say this, risk of a reptile dysfunction, desensitization of stimulation, and a lot more. So, when Pam confronted Richard about it later, she told him that for them to continue to be intimate, he would have to wear a condom, which, didn't she say? You know what? Never mind. Richard basically said no because he didn't like that feeling. He didn't care that this could impact her health in the short term and long term. He was just opposed to the use of condoms. Pam said at that moment, she realized that he did not truly love her. Now, not too long after that, Pam and Richard would break up. He was continuing to use, and Pam couldn't sit around and just be his caregiver all day, especially when he didn't care about the care she was giving. So she left. But apparently and allegedly, what wasn't mentioned in her book was that at the same time he was dating her, he got someone else pregnant and married that same person. Hard times would continue, however, for Pam personally. After Richard and Pam broke up, she got a phone call from her ex, Freddy Prince. He told her he was considering the side of Sue and wanted her to come and help him out and give him some money. She didn't go see him, and 3 days later, he actually did what he said he was going to do. She didn't go to his funeral because she didn't want to see the people that she felt ultimately led to his demise. But instead, she did go to his grave afterwards to say goodbye. By By the mid-1990s, Pam Grier had intense romances with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Freddy Prince, and Richard Pryor. She had also survived a stage 4 cervical cancer diagnosis and a ghosting by her boyfriend while she was in the early stages of treatment. So, that's what she had overcome by the time she met this record executive named Kevin Evans. Now, in her autobiography, I believe she refers to him as Caleb. So let me preface this part of the love story with a big allegedly. Now, Kevin worked for RCA Records. He wasn't a nobody. He worked with a plethora of artists, including, let me drop the scroll, SWV, Shirley Caesar, Fred Hammond, NSYNC, Freddie Jackson, Tyrese, Barry White, Janet Jackson, Yolanda Adams, etc. Now, Pam and Kevin met at a hotel and quickly learned that they both not only came from Denver, but actually lived in the same house and had the exact same bedroom. Now, though they did have that in common, honestly, they were opposites. She was in her late 40s, he was in his mid 30s. She had never been married before, and he was a divorced dad with 3 kids, and the youngest was a little baby. Pam was modest and lived beneath her means, and Keith liked the stunt, but regardless, they dated. And after she turned 47, he took her out to dinner with a few of his friends. And during the meal, he turns to Pam and hands her a ring box with a 2.5 carat diamond ring inside. Now, what I say about these type of proposals? If you don't remember, please hold. And I'm gonna be honest, this reminds me that there are certain types of proposals that I absolutely hate. I hate the proposals where the proposer puts the ring on the potential fiance's finger before they even have a chance to respond. I also hate the proposals where the proposee doesn't say a thing, but just opens the box with the jewelry as if the ring's gonna do the talking. And I also don't like those proposals where it feels like this is being done out of obligation. Right, so one of those. She puts the ring on and says yes, but she wasn't saying yes to Kevin, but the idea of what saying yes meant. She wanted the wedding, the Vera Wang gown, remember those days? And the built-in family he provided. Not only that, they told Jet Magazine in 1998 that they hoped to have their own child one day, despite her being 48 at the time. But eventually, his flashiness and disregard for others was just something she couldn't ignore. In her book, she mentioned how she came back from shooting a movie to him with 3 new luxury cars in the garage. He had moved her car to the street. Now, as a man with 3 kids and 2 of them weren't even 5 years old, she wanted to know where were the car seats. He was like, we could use your truck for that. Now, how you gonna be a family man with no regard for the family, man? This was the sign, the flag, the exit she needed, and she slowly started to move her stuff out of his home and skedaddled on out of there. Now, Pam Grier had many other relationships throughout the years, but ultimately her desire for independence and authenticity to be her true and full self is why she never married. And that's okay. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to share her stories with you this week. We know many people like Pam, like our mamas, our aunties, our friends, and sometimes even ourselves, that rather be content and single than be tortured and partnered. And there is always so much attention given to people that marry, but I think we need to honor those that choose themselves and their happiness too. So many of you want to know, where did I get this information from? So let me tell you. While Pam Grier's love life has been the subject of much speculation, she has always maintained a high level of privacy, even as she shared some of those details in her autobiography she released in 2010 titled Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts. Also, Season 4 of the podcast The Plot Thickens by TCM is an episodic interview with Pam about her career, life, and loves. I definitely give it a listen. The links to these and other great resources about Pam Grier's life and love story are included in the notes below. Before we end this episode, I'm going to be on the podcast Two Black Girls, One Rose this week to discuss I'll Tell You What, history of Black love, and how it is ultimately displayed on the screen. I hope you enjoy the episode, and please listen to it when it drops this week. Also, I'll Tell You What was featured on the Black Love website too, which is so awesome. Look at us, friends. People are knowing us. It's so appreciated. So if you haven't checked that out yet, go ahead and do so. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to I'll Tell You What wherever you can. And no matter where you listen or enjoy, please, please, please leave a podcast review. Now check the links in the notes below if you want to support the show, grab some merch, or donate a coin or two. And thank you so much if you do so. Next week, we'll be diving into the comments and questions y'all have asked within the last month for a special I'll Tell You 2 episode. But after that, in September, we are celebrating the return of football season with a look at some of your favorite players and coaches throughout time. See you in the pews.